Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambeau channel. Attorney Jeremy Hogan has predicted that Ripple will appeal the Judge Torres decision and also provides brief commentary on the SBF trial as news broke today that he will testify under oath, which is frankly a bit of a risky prospect. And so the Crypto Basic, in covering the portion that Hogan had to say regarding the Ripple lawsuit, which is certainly interesting because obviously Ripple, let's be real, they already won. Not on every single aspect in the case, but the most core piece that really truly mattered, not just to them, but every XRP holder on the damn planet, is whether or not XRP itself is a security. So already won on that, but Attorney Hogan has made this prediction, which the Crypto Basic has labeled a quote-unquote audacious prediction, and fair enough, that Ripple's actually going to go back and be like, no, we need to talk about that part where we lost, which had to do with institutional level sales. And I also have some perspective from Attorney John Deaton having to do with the SBF trial. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, so here's the first story into the headline from Crypto Basic. Expert predicts SEC lawsuit to end with Ripple winning on appeal across 3 categories of XRP sales. Attorney Jeremy Hogan makes an audacious prediction about the ongoing SEC v. Ripple lawsuit, saying that Ripple will win on appeal across all 3 categories of XRP sales. The ongoing SEC v. Ripple lawsuit has seen exciting developments over the past week. Notably, the most shocking event is the SEC's decision to drop its pending claims against Ripple execs Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson. Following recent events in the SEC v. Ripple lawsuit, legal experts within the crypto community have been speculating on how the case will end. It is worth noting that the vast majority of XRP community members forecast that the SEC could settle with Ripple or file an appeal at the Second Circuit. However, not much has been said about the actions Ripple could take after the final judgment. And so, folks, think about that. We've been talking about will the SEC come to the table and be willing to settle? What if Ripple doesn't want to settle? What if Ripple actually wants to go back and be like, no, we're appealing, you little punk-ass bitches? What if that is actually what happens? Because, I mean, let's be real also, too. Like, when this decision came down, yes, absolutely thrilled. All of us thrilled that XRP itself was declared to not be a security. But, you know, most people that were providing analysis that I saw, and I thought was a reasonable analysis, they thought that, you know, on the institutional side, if anything, that's more likely to get the green light, which is why there's this theory that Ripple stopped with their programmatic sales back in, I think it was the end of 2019, but they carried on with on-demand liquidity and all sales associated with that, because they thought that was more so likely, to get the thumbs up, should there ever be any legal scrutiny, should there ever be a lawsuit. And then people are also thinking that when it came to the programmatic side, that might be something that would be more likely for Judge Torres to rule, against Ripple on, which would have been in theory, bad for XRP holders, depending on how that was written, the way it came down. But it was the opposite of that. It was institutional sales, specifically from Ripple, though, just from Ripple, bad, and then programmatic, good. But again, keep in mind, like I just said, like that's specifically having to do with Ripple and their transactions. So they're still fighting for that. But anyway, piece continues. In a surprising development, Attorney Jeremy Hogan made an audacious prediction during an interview on crypto law. He emphasized that the lawsuit will end with Ripple appealing the summary judgment in the Second Circuit. According to the top lawyer, Ripple will win on appeal using the blue sky defense. He speculated that the Second Circuit would agree with Ripple's blue sky defense. Thus, the blockchain company will walk away with a big win across all 3 categories of sales, end quote. So that'd be institutional, programmatic, and then any other type of distribution there. And when you're talking about blue skies laws, and Ripple brought this up in their defense also, you're talking about, basically when you hear blue skies laws, just think state laws having to do with securities, effectively, because they predate the SEC having their Securities Act passed. So it used to be just a bunch of individual states, and then on a federal level, ultimately after that, you did have a Securities Act that passed. But even then, when that passed, they drew upon specific examples that states had drafted and implemented and put in the law. And ultimately, Attorney Hogan said that I'll just read this part at the end here. He estimated that Ripple has a 51.6% chance of winning the appeal across all three categories of sales using the blue sky defense. Interestingly, Attorney Hogan's wife, Tenvu, also agreed with this prediction. So, more likely than not, he actually thinks that Ripple's going to go in a guns a-blazing and actually appeal. So, mind you, if they appeal, that wouldn't change, that wouldn't put at risk anything having to do with the programmatic sales. The only thing that would put that at risk is if the SEC ends up appealing. So it would be interesting if that's correct, and rather than wrap the whole thing up, Ripple just goes for the jugular here, because they already got the most important piece that matters. And if the SEC is going to appeal, they're going to appeal. But if anything, I would think if the SEC does appeal, if anything, that would just make it that much more likely that Ripple also appeals the portion of Judge Torres' decision that wasn't in their favor. So we'll see what happens here. But either way, the good news is for us as XRP holders, this thing's done as far as I'm concerned. And this is what I've gathered from other attorneys that are speaking, not other attorneys, because I just play an attorney on YouTube, from attorneys that are speaking about this. The decision's made. It's done. XRP itself is not a security. And even if there is an appeal that's successful, it's only going to impact those sales that specifically have to do with Ripple. So for the rest of us out there buying and selling on exchanges, it frankly just wouldn't matter at all. And then there's this news, as shared by attorney Jeremy Hogan. He wrote, "Hail Mary, SBF to testify in fraud trial after onslaught from Inner Circle." And so this is this idea had been bandied about in recent days and weeks. Is SBF actually going to testify? Because that's a tremendous risk. Now, this guy is such a narcissist, has such an ego, and he thinks he can trick anyone into believing anything, that he may believe that he can pull a fast one past the jury and just make them absolutely love him. It worked on the venture capitalists, right? So, there's that. So he's got this ridiculous ego and narcissism about all this. But is that actually in his best interest? Because if something doesn't go right, there's always the risk that, or if you don't look right on the stand, it doesn't come across well, you could be adding a crazy amount of time to a prison sentence if you're convicted. And in the case of SBF, I have a hard time believing that he wouldn't be convicted. I think he's going to spend decades, if not his entire life, in prison. That would be my guess here. And so I'm kind of wondering internally, is part of the calculus that they already know that he's going to get convicted? If you're his attorney, that you got to be telling him too. The odds of you not getting a conviction here are low. So they already know that there's a good chance he's going to spend the vast majority, if not his entire life, in prison. And so that's why when Attorney Hogan says Hail Mary, what I'm thinking, and this isn't what Attorney Hogan said, but what I was just thinking is that, perhaps it would be the case that they're hoping, they recognize maybe it could make things way worse for him, but there's this maybe even off chance where if it goes well, maybe he's not convicted, or there'd be some sort of lesser sentence. So maybe he's already so screwed, they're like, well, let's roll the dice here. I don't know. Here's the headline from the Daily Huddle. Former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried decides to testify in court after damning testimonies from colleagues. Former FTX chief executive Sam Bankman-Fried has reportedly decided to testify in court after his colleagues took the witness stand to provide evidence. In a lengthy thread on the social media platform X, Inner City Press reports that Bankman-Fried's lawyer has stated that his client will testify after the defense's 3 witnesses in order to rebut statements made by employees of FTX. Earlier in the trial, ex-Alameda Research CEO and Bankman-Fried's ex-girlfriend, Caroline Ellison, told the court that she was directed by Bankman-Fried to commit fraud. According to Ellison, Alameda took about $14 billion worth of FTC customer funds between 2020 and 2022 under the direction of Bankman-Fried. She also noted that Alameda doctored its balance sheets to make the firm seem less risky to lending companies. Days before that, FTX co-founder Gary Wang testified against Bankman-Fried, saying that what the crypto exchange listed as an insurance fund was in reality a fake account. According to Wang, the fund didn't actually have the amount of backstop funds it claimed to have in it, such as a $5.5 million in cash and 5 million FTT tokens, which is the FTX token, of course. Wang notes that FTX made up the amount of USD in the account using a formula that included a random number generator. That's right, folks. That's how bad this is. Literally, used a number generator just to trick people into believing all this nonsense. Absolutely crazy. And so it does seem that SBF, after seeing all the testimony from his former staff here, including his ex-girlfriend, he's come to the conclusion that the best thing that he can do is push back against this by using his own mouth words in front of the jury. Good luck, you're going to need it. I'm just kidding. I don't wish him good luck. I think that he should spend the rest of his life in prison. And then I want to share with you perspective from Attorney Deaton on this. And the first thing I'm going to share with you is something that Attorney Deaton posted on October 12th. He wrote, "The defense attorneys seem lost. When you start repeating the prosecutor's direct exam, it's because you don't know what to do and you are filling time. In a case like this, laser focus is necessary and less is more. Score some very specific points on cross and sit the F word down. The only chance you have is if SBF takes the stand, and combined with the points you scored, you convince one juror to hold out." And so there you go. Yeah, that makes sense because you're not. Let's be real. You're not going to convince all of the jurors to hold out and be on your side. Like, that's just not going to. But if you just get one, then I mean, that's the best you could hope for, right? And then there wouldn't be that conviction. And so then this morning, Attorney Deaton reposted that and wrote the following. "As I said a couple weeks ago, the only viable defense strategy is for SBF to testify and hope he can convince one juror that he didn't have fraudulent intent. It all grew so fast and furious. It all just got away from him. Caroline and Gary lied to save their own skin and avoid long-term prison sentences. The problem is the defense attorney hasn't been laser focused on this defense. Had he been, the cross-examinations of Caroline and others would have been much shorter and much more focused." Yeah, so I think that's great insight, and we'll see what happens, but I don't imagine that this thing is likely to go well. And maybe even his attorneys realize that, and they're just like, well, you're kind of screwed. Maybe they're internally, they don't say it to him like this, man, you're kind of screwed anyway. So just get up there, go ahead and lie to the jurors. We'll see what happens, folks. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.